In former years, we traveled incognito, then by freight. Now we just thumb it. But of all the rides I've taken, I like best...
Oh? You clumsy oaf, you tripped him.
He certainly did not. The butler did it deliberately.
I did not, sir.
As a rule, parties bore me, but I know I'm going to get a big bang out of this one.
Oh, Senator, I'm so sorry. You missed me.
Oh, yeah?
Wait, please.
Who did it? Who threw that?
He did.
Oh, you did, huh?
Stop it. Do you hear me?
And there we were, in mud, up to here. I'll find out.
What's the idea? Who interfered with my romance? Gentlemen, please.
We strive to please. Stop. This has gone far enough. Love thy neighbor. Why? But I raised my rifle and fired.
Your God's friends are getting to be a bore. So go somewhere else and continue your dream of war.
It's time for Fully Threaded Radio.
It is Fully Threaded Radio, voice of the FCH Sourcing Network. This is online, on-demand, predominantly fastener-related talk radio, and we're so glad you joined us once again, everybody. Eric Dudas here, and co-pilot of Fully Threaded is Brian Musker. Brian, how the heck are you?
Oh, I'm doing okay at the moment, actually. I'm at least I've got back to the right time zones.
It's been quite a summer of travel for you, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. Coming back from Aussie is particularly a problem because it's 13 hours different, and it's really hard to get switched over.
Takes a while to catch back up. Well, what I want to know is, who's your travel agent, because as you know, it's winter down there, and you're definitely more of a summer kind of guy, so it seems like you went down there wrong time of year to me.
Yes, this is absolutely true. In fact, no one in their right mind would take off to Australia or New Zealand in the middle of winter. But I went down to see my mother, who's 95, and my nephew just had his 21st birthday.
Aha. Well, I knew there had to be a good reason. Well, welcome back to the Midwest, and welcome back to online Fastener Talk Radio. I bet you were pining to get back behind the mic.
Oh, yes, I was, every minute.
And welcome back to all of you, too, folks. This is episode 108 of the podcast, and this time we're broadcasting on August 18th, 2016. We've got another, I think, fairly good show for you, jam-packed with content. Might not be one of our more hilarious episodes, I'm warning you, which you might not have gathered that from the intro, but we'll try and make it very, very informative and well worth the listen. Our feature segment today is a discussion, a wide-ranging discussion, with Charlie Kerr, he of Kerr Lakeside. We always get positive feedback when we have him on the program, and we cover a wide swath of topics today.
Very wide, actually.
Yes, the conversation actually contains one snippet there where the program is getting its namesake today. Well, don't want to get ahead of myself. We're also going to have a conversation with John Metcalf and Chris Lacoste of Peak Innovation Engineering. They're going to share with us some very interesting things they're doing on the testing front, the quality front, using ultrasonics. It's something we haven't spoken about on the podcast yet. We thought we'd have them on. They'll take us on a guided tour.
A guided technical tour, actually.
NFDA President Marc Strandquist will be joining Mike McNulty on the Fastener News Report. Some kind of startling numbers from July on the FDI this time, Bri.
Yeah, it's sort of a little bit disappointingly low, but I think it was the industry sentiment for last month anyway. Things are a little better at the moment, I think.
Well, we'll get their thoughts on it on the Fastener News Report. Plus, Carmen Vertullo has the Fastener Training Minute rounding out this episode. And Brian, before we get started, why don't you round up the fine sponsors we've got for this episode?
Yes, and we do have some great sponsors, and we're very lucky to have them. The title sponsors of Fully Threaded Radio are Stellfast and Lindstrom, in the Lindstrom family of companies. Stellfast, for service you deserve and people you trust. Lindstrom, by any measure. Also sponsoring Fully Threaded are Buckeye Fasteners, Fastenal, InSequel Software, Indy Industries, The Worth Group, Volt Industrial Plastics, and Solution Industries, home of Solution Man. So thanks to all of you. We couldn't take the time off our busy work to produce Fully Threaded unless we had the support, so we appreciate it very much.
Yeah, thanks again, everyone. And we'd love to hear your comments and feedback anytime. The email address to contact us is ftr@fullythreaded.com, and you can reach us through Twitter, where the handle is fullythreaded. Brian, when you were mentioning the sponsors, there's a new one listed on the fullythreaded.com website, and it's for a sponsor that probably most of the folks in the listening audience at some level are participating in or are aware of, and that is the National Industrial Fastener and Mill Supply Expo. That, of course, is the Vegas show, as many of us call it and refer to it. It's coming up this year, October 25th through the 27th, and FCH, as usual, has a booth there. Let's see, this year it's booth 2233. I'm sure we have a stellar location because we did it with a little bit of head start this time.
Right. Well, it's most likely we won't have a column stuck in the middle of our booth, okay? Or no power.
Yeah, that's actually my secret fear. Keeps me awake at night. Until that first day of the show's under our belt, you know? Then you get that peaceful, easy feeling. Or maybe that's from too many old rusties. I don't know.
No, the peaceful feeling comes from, just before the show starts, when you've had the TV screen delivered and you've actually got it working, unlike, the panic we had last year. But it's, and then you realize you actually have all the stuff that you can make it work.
Yeah, that's always kind of a nice feeling too. Well, there's another way that you might be able to get a nice feeling this year at the Vegas show. Show organizers have announced a new program which they're calling the Rising Star Program. And this is an exciting new program that allows any distributor to nominate an additional colleague employed within the same company or within the fastener industry in general to accompany them to the next fastener show. So essentially what they're going to be providing is 2 nights accommodations and free admission to the expo. And there are further details on this, as you might imagine, but it's pretty straightforward. And you can nominate somebody, and they're saying, be the hero. It's the Rising Star Program. You can get more information about this right on the Vegas Show website, which is www.fastenershows.com.
Yeah, that actually seems like a pretty cool idea.
Did you nominate me, Bri?
Then I'd be having to admit you're a rising star.
Well, whether that's true or not, I'm not qualified because I'm looking here through the conditions, and it turns out you cannot have attended the show between 2012 and 2015, so neither of us are eligible. But I would have nominated you, Bri.
Oh, okay, thanks. Yeah, we fail that test pretty convincingly.
Again, the Vegas Fastener Show coming up October 25th through the 27th. FCH will be there, booth 2233. The excitement's really building, Brian, and I noticed that there was even a cover story on the Vegas show on the latest issue of American Fastener Journal.
Yeah, I saw that.
I've been reading the American Fastener Journal last couple of issues, and I've noticed that, Tom Mazer took it over a few months back. We had him explain a little bit about that. And I think he's been doing a pretty good job about beefing it up. It was getting a little thin there, but looks like he's doing a good job at giving it a shot in the arm. So American Fastener Journal, of course, they have a digital edition as well. So if paper magazines are not your style, folks, you can certainly get the digital version. go out to fastenerjournal.com. You can see that and catch the NIFS cover story.
Yeah, Tom, we met down in Nashville just after he had taken over the journal, and he was intent on making sure that Lynn and I were distracted away from the convention. He did not succeed, but he tried hard.
Well, I'm sure you had your feet firmly planted in both spots, but yeah, he's a good guy to hang with when you're at one of the shows. We saw him again then at the tabletop in Chicago this summer.
Yeah.
So good work over there, Tom, and good work to the Vegas show organizers on all this. Don't miss the Rising Star program, and don't miss all the great stuff we've got coming up on the podcast, folks, which we'll be bringing to you right after this.
2 men, 1 server, a fastener dog, and a stunning lack of more lucrative alternatives. It's Fully Threaded Radio.
What's the real value of Lindstrom? You probably know us as a leading specialty fastener master distributor. But what really sets us apart is a commitment to providing added value for the distributors we serve. Over the years, we've developed a solid foundation of value-added specialties, including hard-to-find products, expertise in secondary processes, in-house manufacturing, technical services, and unique inventory management programs. As we continue to expand, Lindstrom is focused on a single goal: to bring our distributors the perfect combination of convenience, flexibility, value, and choice, to be the source for everything distributors need. When you need something special, turn to Lindstrom. To learn more about Lindstrom and our expanded brand of value-added products and services, visit LindstromFastener.com or call a sales representative at 1-800-572-5550. Lindstrom, by any measure.
When top quality and outstanding service are at the top of your list in fastener suppliers, turn to Stellfast. Since 1976, Stellfast has grown to become an industry-leading importer and manufacturer of the highest quality industrial fasteners, specialty items, and automotive parts. Our array of facilities across North America and in Asia, along with full quality control labs and ISO 9001-2008 certifications, ensure the highest quality parts, and at Stellfast, they're delivered with undisputed service excellence. We're family-run and dedicated to your success. Our customers have come to depend on the expertise of our staff and the quality of our products. We also offer a wide range of secondary services to meet some of the toughest requirements you might have. Contact Stellfast today through our website at www.stellfast.com and put us to work for you. Stellfast. Service you deserve, people you trust. It's that time again. Time for the largest event of the year in the fastener industry. It's the National Industrial Fastener and Mill Supply Expo. The show takes place October 25th through 27th at the Sands Expo Center in Las Vegas. If you attend the show every year, you'll be surprised at the many enhancements Emerald Expositions has added, including more meetings, free sessions, and award recognition ceremonies right on the show floor. They've even expanded the legendary welcome reception, which is being held this year poolside at Treasure Island. And if you haven't yet attended the Fastener Show, this is the year to make the trip. This is the big time in the fastener industry, and this year's event will be the largest ever, so you can't afford not to. The show features over 600 suppliers from across the country and worldwide. The National Industrial Fastener and Mill Supply Expo takes place October 25th through 27th in Las Vegas. For full details and to register, visit www.fastenershows.com. See you there.
Hi, this is Joanne with Star Stainless in Woodville, Illinois. You're listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
Brian and Eric back with you, fighting for truth, justice, and the fastener way of life. Fully Threaded.
That's right. Well, for those listeners who wait every month with bated breath for Carmen Vertullo's Technical Minute, have we got something for you?
I was just thinking the same thing, Bri, and I know Carmen listens to every episode. We're going to dig right into some content here, everybody. We've got a kind of an exciting and unique topic thus far covered, or I guess not covered, on the podcast. And we're going to be talking to a couple of gentlemen who are doing something kind of innovative in the field of testing. And I guess we'll just kind of let them speak for themselves. But in a nutshell, they're doing joint non-modified torque tension testing. And they're going to delve in a little bit into the area of ultrasonics. So sounds really fascinating. Here to talk to us about that, we have John Metcalf and Chris Lucasi on the show. They're from Peak Innovations Engineering, Peak's a fastener applications test lab. And hey, guys, thanks for joining us on Fully Threaded. Tell us all about it.
Sure. So, yeah, Peak is a fastener test facility. We're actually headquartered in Chesney Park, Illinois. And that came about actually last year in October. Dairy Enterprises, who is also the owner of Field, finalized the deal with Archetype Joint. Archetype Joint had been around for about 10 years in Detroit, Michigan, and Dave Archer was running Archetype Joint. So after finalizing the deal, we relocated the lab back to McChesney Park, and we continue along with Dave's focus on testing for joints in high-end aerospace manufacturing, automotive manufacturing, and just OEMs with critical and non-critical joints that need to know a little bit more about the joint and what's going on inside of it.
Now, this is Chris speaking, correct?
Yes.
So we've heard lots lately about Field Fastener. Seems like they're in the news continuously. It's one of the greatest places to work. I think you've got it like a full Olympic squat rack over there, probably a bunch of pinball games and trampolines and so forth. But it sounds like you have a relationship with Field, but it's not working directly with or for Field. Is that right?
Correct. They're two separate companies. So Field set up down the road. We're actually in separate buildings. And we don't share information between the two companies. So it is totally unique and separate.
Do you get to use the trampolines, though?
Yeah, we still get to go over there and use their equipment for working out and still get to participate in some of the fun events they do there.
Beautiful. So you're operating as separate entities. We got it. And what exactly are you doing at Peak?
So it's, as we mentioned, we're mainly focused on joint testing and application testing. So we have capabilities to do benchtop torque tension testing, coefficient of friction testing, capabilities to do thermal cycling. We can modify and mock up joints in-house, modify fasteners, to do the different testing. Sometimes it requires that. And then we have in-joint, non-modified torque tension, torque angle, to tension testing, and that's really where a lot of the value comes in, where we can actually test the real live physical components.
Okay, so we've got a couple of technical notes here. Non-modified joint torque tension testing. You better explain that to us. What is it and how do you do it?
Sure. So when we say non-modified, that means that we're not modifying the joint components when we go ahead and test them. We're testing them as they would be in an assembly. But really want to first step back and understand why we want to do the testing, what value it would bring to the customers. So one of the things that we're looking at for customers all the time is establishing assembly torques. That's kind of one of the number one reasons Dave was able to get into business originally. Everybody's always looking for how do you calculate that? How do you establish that? I think as a lot of the listeners know, torque can be a very poor predictor of clamp load just based on the variation of assembly. But really, clamp load is what we care about to keep a joint secure. So the reason that torque doesn't work out very well is, number one, variation in friction, whether that's under the head to the fastener or in the threads. But basically just get a lot of variability in the clamp load based on it. And the second issue is joint relaxation. So just because you were able to get a joint tight originally, that doesn't mean it's going to stay tight for its service life. So you have to care about the clamp load kind of originally at assembly and then kind of throughout the lifetime of that joint. So this ultrasonic torque tension testing that we mentioned is something that allows us to really get into that, take some of that friction and the variation out of the equation and measure clamp load in the joint directly and not worry about the torque, but to really back into the torque based on the clamp load that we're really trying to achieve.
So can you back up a second? And for us liberal arts majors, what's ultrasonics and how's that used?
Sure. So ultrasonics, I think just about everybody can relate to maybe expecting mother going to the doctor and getting an ultrasound. We're literally using that same type of technology to measure clamp load in bolted joints. But basically what it is we prepare a fastener by getting the ends nice and flat and parallel, and then we bond a little piezo microchip to it. And then using a data acquisition system, we send electrical pulse through that chip, and that turns into a mechanical pulse, and it creates an echo that will travel through the bolt. When it reaches the end of the bolt, it senses kind of this change in density from going to the bolt to the air, and so it's going to reflect a wave back up. And then that wave goes back up into the pickup, and our system will then measure the time of flight of that echo. Basically, as the fastener has load applied to it, it's going to elongate, and so that echo is going to take longer, and so we're measuring that delta time of flight.
Okay, so how does that measure the clamp load then?
Sure, and that is done through a calibration process. So what we can do is we can hook those fasteners up to our load frame and apply a known load while measuring the time of flight. Before you permanently deform the fastener, that's going to happen in kind of this linear correlation. So we can have a direct correlation between the change in length or the change in time of flight of that signal to the clamp load or the tension in the fastener. And that gives us a calibration for that specific bolt. So then when we put it into the actual test apparatus or the test components, once we measure the same time of flight, we know what that load is based on the calibration file.
Okay. So this is like a micro version of the guy sitting in his submarine in dust boat waiting for the little ping from the ship up above. Because they're detecting the distance away from the surface to the submarine. So this is you're using ultrasonics as opposed to ordinary sonics.
Exactly. It's a very similar technology. So it's kind of all about the calibration and making sure you're really replicating the assembly, whether it's the grip length or the engagement material, so that while we're calibrating the bolt, it's behaving the same way that it would be in the assembly. But exactly all the system needs to know is how long it takes for that signal to come back, and then through this calibration process, we're able to know exactly what that tension is in the bolt at any given time.
I was also thinking, Brian, it's a lot like the LCR on our fishing boat. So that's
just the same. That is true.
Unfortunately, it's not. I wish it would elongate some of the fish we catch, but they haven't developed that technology yet, I guess. Well, let me ask you guys this. Why would it be of a concern if someone modified the bolt? I mean, what's the danger in doing that?
Well, so as soon as you modify a bolt, and so that's traditionally how clamp load would have been tested without this technology, is trying to put in either a load cell in the joint or using strain gauges applied directly to the bolt. But now you're changing the components. So to put a load cell in there, you need to use a longer bolt, or maybe you need to take some material out of the assembly components. So now you're changing joint stiffness and the interactions there. Kind of a similar thing with strain gauges. Usually you're going to modify the bolt, or it's actually kind of expensive to create a strain gauge bolt, so you're going to have a tendency to reuse that. This ultrasonic technology is fairly inexpensive, so that we can use new bolts every time. So you're really, again, using the production components. Because anytime you modify something, now it's just getting into estimations, and it's hard to say how much that modification affected your results, but you know that it did. As opposed to this technology really allows you to use the fasteners just as they were intended. Nothing that we've done during the calibration modifies the performance of the bolts. So really you're getting those true representations of how that fastener should perform.
Okay. So what you've described actually deals with the problem of the variation of the clamp load. But what about the relaxation of the joint itself over time?
That's another great thing that ultrasonics allows us to get a lot of insight into. Because like I said, that fastener hasn't functionally been modified, just the ends of it. It can actually be put into real assemblies, and as long as it's fairly well protected so that that sensor doesn't get damaged and you can access it later on, that product that it goes into can be durability tested, maybe thermal and environmentally cycled to a certain extent. Then we can come back later, and then we can still hook up our system to that same bolt and that same chip. Using our same calibration file, we can then read what the tension is on that bolt at a later time. So you're not just seeing it one time at assembly, but you can actually check it throughout, check the effects of relaxation, check the effects of using that product or using it in an environment, and seeing how well that joint can stand up through service.
Okay. So come back down to the practical world of things that we can actually see and touch. So what's an example of, where this has been used?
I think one great example would be one where we do testing fairly often, and I think everyone can relate to, is the lug nuts or lug bolts on your car. Everyone can relate that that's something you don't just care about the tension initially, but you care about that clamp load in the joint throughout the life of it until it gets serviced again, and somebody is going to take that wheel off intentionally, not just as it's going down the road. So that is a service we provide to a couple different OEMs where we'll go on site and we'll measure initial tension at assembly. The manufacturer will maybe take a couple laps on the test track or do whatever durability test they need. And then we'll come back and we'll test the clamp load later on. And so I think hopefully that's something that the listeners can take comfort in, that that testing does get done and that this is the technology that allows that to happen.
Actually, for someone, if I wish this had been around like 40 years ago when I bought a car, and they did have cars back then, and the wheels the stud nuts were on so tightly I could not actually get them off when I had a flat tire. So what you were discussing though is a joint for your testing for the OEMs. A joint that's actually been in assembly and used for years. Why would someone need to test that?
Sure, and that's something that we get a lot of, and something that kind of our core customers understand is that anytime something changes in the joint, you really need to revalidate it. So just like with cars, whether we're putting the larger wheels on it, we're using different materials. A lot of automotive joints, we're trying to go lighter weight, smaller fasteners, different materials, different things like that. Anytime you make a change like that, you really need to revalidate what you've done in the past. And so I think we've found that the cost of performing this testing really pales in comparison to anything that you might experience as far as recalls, warranty issues, or anything where this joint could fail if you don't really consider what those changes may have done to the performance.
Okay.
We're speaking with John Metcalf and Chris Lucasi of Peak Innovations Engineering. They're discussing their innovative process of joint validation using ultrasonics. And Brian, I know you have a follow-up question to that answer.
Yes, well, going back to my early time and the dawn of the age of computers at engineering school, aren't there like calculations you can actually make much better now than we could, that you can get some of these values?
Yeah, and I think we were talking earlier that a lot has gone on in the way of computer FEA analysis and things like that have improved. There are calculations you can make, but just like any model, anything that you get out of it is only as good as the data going in and the series of assumptions you're making to complete those models. So that's something that we can help with. We can do that kind of from the consultancy side of looking at some of those equations and getting in the ballpark. But really, you're going to assume an ideal situation. But I think with fasteners, we have to realize that you get away from that ideal situation pretty quickly, whether it's variations in friction, dinged threads, reuse fasteners, different things like that. As soon as you start to change, then those calculations kind of go out the window. So they are useful. They can get you in the ballpark, maybe get you kind of the starting point for a design, but really testing is what really allows you to validate everything that you put into those and whether your calculations were really correct.
That's true.
Now, are companies typically using your services at a certain phase of their production, or is this more like an ongoing QA type of a service that you offer?
Yeah, that's a little bit of both. We have done testing for customers as they're in prototyping stage, and testing for customers when they do design changes, and kind of on an ongoing basis, there are specific joints that just need to be validated and consistently validated as they're critical joints and things that you don't want coming apart.
I would also add that I think you mentioned troubleshooting. So when things are going wrong, this testing can come in very handy of, well, if something did change and what are the effects of it, sort of looking at some of the details of the joint. This works very well at diagnosing issues as well.
And why don't you give us a little bit about the Peak Edge? In other words, why does someone go to Peak? Why do they choose you guys instead of some of the many other fastener testing firms?
Well, as we mentioned before, we're an independent firm and we have no interest in the commercial sale of fasteners. So really all we do at Peak is testing specifically for fasteners, so your listeners and our customers can feel comfortable that we're going to bring a focused approach to joint validation. And we're looking at utilizing the best equipment available on the market today. And feedback we've gotten from our customers is that we're faster, we can be more complete and more accurate sometimes in their own internal labs, and also have the capabilities to sometimes replace or complement their own internal labs so they don't have to have the capital expense for the ultrasonics, the other equipment for testing, and have staffed engineers. I think as everyone in this industry is hearing, there's a lot of people retiring with a lot of tribal knowledge that sometimes isn't getting passed along as customers and different companies are out in budget cut mode, and so we can be a contract engineer for them.
This comes from a 30 under 30 manifesto. I can tell. But you're right.
Both John and I are previous 30 under 30 award winners.
I know, and this whole section here comes from a chance meeting up at the Rockford at the Midwest Fastener Association meeting up there.
Talk about a tribe. Tribal knowledge.
Right.
That's how it all gets passed around, right, guys?
That's right. Absolutely.
And John and Chris, let us know how folks can get more information. I'm going to guess you have a fantastic website that everyone can use to get more information and contact you.
Absolutely. We just launched a new website, www.pieng.com, or they can email us at info@pieng.com.
And I would encourage people to check that out. There are some great articles that Dave has written. So whether you're looking to contact us or just get some more fastening information or looking for some interesting stories to read, it should be a great resource.
Sounds like it. Well, we'll be looking forward to hearing some reaction from our audience on this subject. Again, it's something that we hadn't covered before. And I know that Carmen Vertullo and his minions out there, all the CFS listeners, they're going to be really eating this up. So we sure do appreciate you folks taking the time to speak with us today on the podcast.
Yes.
Thanks for having us.
It's all right.
Thanks, guys.
John Metcalf and Chris Licassi from Peak Innovations Engineering. And we'll be right back with more Fully Threaded Radio.
Talk radio for the fastener industry. It's not really all that bad for the most part. Brian and Eric, Fully Threaded Radio.
Harry, now that you use InSequel software, how do you like it?
InSequel has delivered. They truly are written for fastener distributors. It's affordable and their support staff is great.
We found InSequel's support staff has depth. They know our industry, and they certainly know their software. I see they've helped you pronounce InSequel.
Yes, but what does InSequel mean? Is it written in SQL? Is the data stored in SQL? Are they located in SQL?
InSequel uses the industry standard Microsoft SQL database, which is why it's so powerful and easy to use.
Oh, the database is stored in SQL. I don't even know where that is. I hear it's a nice place.
Harry, InSequel uses a SQL database because it's current technology and your data is completely accessible. No more expensive custom reports.
Is that why InSequel is so easy to use? Where is SQL on the map?
One of their many support members will help you answer that. Go to their website, www.inxsql.com, or call toll-free 877-446-9775.
For a selection of hundreds of thousands of fasteners, check out your local Fastenal store or Fastenal.com. We can stock domestic or internationally sourced product locally and keep your bin stock filled for you at no additional expense. We are a 9001-2008 certified company that's made a huge investment in quality control so you don't have to. And if you can't find it on our shelf, we can make it for you at the quantity you need at one of our many manufacturing facilities. Learn more by contacting your local Fastenal store or visiting fastenal.com today.
I know my customers' yearly usage, but I don't have the warehouse space to store it.
Solution Man can. Submit a blanket order and I'll not only set up release dates, I'll offer you bulk pricing too. Visit the Solution Industries website for details at solutionind.com.
You're my fastener superhero.
Just doing my job, ma'am.
You know your screws and your brews. That's why now there's a beer brew just for the fastener industry. That's right. You drove all day to make that call. The beer you'll pour, it must be tall. Yeah. Old Rusty Bowl. Yeah. You sold those screws and bolts and nuts, and now it's time to fill your guts, that's clear. Old Rusty Boat, yeah. Forget about cold filtered, old Rusty's cold-headed, for fastener people just like you. It's the beer that could have made Rockford, Illinois famous, until we had to start importing some of the pure 100% natural ingredients that go into every batch. It's got that full threaded flavor, but with a third less oxides, so you can keep enjoying Old Rusty long after the warehouse or show floors close down for the day. That's also why Old Rusty's available in quarter kegs and now in convenient pallets too. Keep it flowing, house. Old Rusty Bowl.
Hi, this is Mark Klossick with Vertex Distribution. I am here at the Fastener Show in Chicago, and I listen to Fully Threaded Radio.
Those of you who heard episode 107 of the podcast, you might have caught the part where we were discussing the proper pronunciation of the two ITR consultants that so frequently appear at various NFDA and other association meetings. Remember that, Bri?
Yeah, I do.
So I think you were of the opinion that it was Bewley.
Yeah, that's the Old English pronunciation.
Right. Well, got an email here from Vicky Lester. She was listening in, and she got from the brothers directly themselves. They pronounce it Bolio.
I guess it's sort of close to the French way.
Who knows? Maybe they're from that side of the channel. I'm not sure, but I think that's the way we'll be pronouncing it from now on. You know, it's good that after 108 episodes, we finally got a definitive answer there.
Right. Resolved that. Okay.
Our amazing journalistic instincts at work here, folks. And how appropriate is that? Because this is the news section, sort of. I guess it's evolved into that. Mike McNulty and the Fastener News Report are coming up momentarily, everybody. And we normally like to get just a couple of tidbits in before that. And I've got one for you. I think a lot of people caught wind of this one. We mentioned it out there on Twitter. It didn't get a lot of coverage in the fastener world, but if you're a long-time Fully Threaded listener, or if you've been paying attention to the Fastener Distributor Index for some years, you might remember that we started that with our original analyst. At the time, it was BB&T analyst Holden Lewis. And he and I kind of kicked that whole idea off, and then together we all worked on it, and it gained steam, and Holden was just great and worked with us for, I think, Bri, like the first 3 years maybe?
Yeah, right.
And then he left BB&T to take a position somewhere else. I think it might have been Oppenheimer, actually, analyst over there. And we kept in contact with him, but not as close, obviously. And, of course, the FDI continued with other analysts. Eventually, we wound up using Charles Redding. But lo and behold, we got some very exciting news just the other day that Holden Lewis has been named the CFO of another company that everybody knows, who's also a friend of the podcast, and that is a little old distributor called Fasten All.
Yeah.
What'd you think when you heard that one, Bri?
Well, interesting. I mean, remember when we first were talking with Holden, his specialty and one of those companies that he zeroed in on and knew lots and lots about was Fastenal. And his specialty was analyzing Fastenal. So I guess it's sort of fitting in a pretty roundabout way, isn't it?
Yeah. And he was kind of watching over the big three, Grainger and MSC being the other two. I remember the first time I went up to Winona for a meeting, I was meeting with some folks up there, and I was waiting in the lobby, and I was scanning some of the stories and so forth they had on the wall there at the time. That's before they did the big remodel. And I remember reading a release that Holden had done, and they had it up on their wall, and it was pretty cool. And who would have thought that a few years later Holden would be up there in the ivory tower? So congratulations to you, Holden, and I think you've got a very exciting road ahead, and Fastenal, you've got a great guy working with you, as you probably well know. They don't need us to tell them that, Bri.
I mean, we had great dealings with Holden. Hope he does great in his new job.
And Fastenal's been a great supporter of the Fastener News Report over the years, too, so all ties together. The title sponsors of Fully Threaded Radio are Stelfast and Lindstrom. And the Lindstrom family of companies appreciate that very much. Fastener News Report will be brought to us this time by Volt Industrial Plastics and Cardinal Fastener. Hey, one other item before we get to that. This is something near and dear to both of our hearts, Bri, because our Home Fastener Association, the MWFA, has a milestone event coming up, and that's their 70th anniversary celebration. Can you believe it?
Yeah, this is going to be one that anyone who's in the MWFA and even other places nearby need to come to, okay?
Yeah, I agree. The 70th bash is going to take place October 6th, and it will be happening at the one and only world-famous Brookfield Zoo.
Yep. And they know how to put on a pretty decent thing, okay? I'm sure there'll be animals around the place, with trainers, of course.
Oh, I thought you meant from the association. But yeah, zoo animals too.
Right. Well, it depends how much beer flows, okay?
Well, don't be afraid, people, because it'll all be in good hands, and it should be just a fantastic event. Of course, details are available at the MWFA website, www.mwfa.net. Again, the 70th anniversary celebration happening October 6, 2016. Remind me, Bri, I've got to get tickets for us, plus Sue and Tom.
Right.
And now, with news about screws that you can use, here he is, Mike McNulty.
Thanks, Eric and Brian. This is Mike McNulty from Fastener Technology International Magazine, bringing you the Fastener News Report, which is sponsored today by Volt Industrial Plastics, makers of the world's finest plastic fasteners. The dog days of August are here, and the Cleveland Indians are still in first place. Football training camps are underway, and the USA is dominating the Olympics, but I am still focused on fasteners and ready to deliver today's Fastener News Report. In today's report, we are going to reveal the latest results of the Fastener Distributor Index, also known as the FDI. Also in today's broadcast, we have our top story from RotorClip and loads of newsmaker headlines from popular fastener firms, including Grainger, Stanley, Vertex, Falcon Fastening, Vulcan Threaded Products, the Worth Group, Nordlock, Alcoa, Rottwasher, and Penn Engineering. On the back page report, we're going to talk about the cost of college. We will get to all of that and last month's FDI results right after this.
Volt Industrial Plastics is the source for all your high-quality plastic fastener needs, and customer service is their #1 priority. With almost 1 million fasteners in stock and same-day shipping on stock items, Volt Industrial Plastics carries inventory so you don't have to. Volt manufactures everything in-house from over 125 different materials, and they're proud to say 100% of their products are American-made. And of course, custom tooling and in-house bagging is available. Contact Volt online at www.voltplastics.com. Volt Industrial Plastics, makers of the world's finest plastic fasteners.
Cardinal Fastener is your source for high-quality made-in-the-USA bolts, from 3/8 inch up to 4.5 inch diameter. We can forge a wide variety of materials, including carbon steels, alloys, high-nickel alloys, and stainless. And our in-house tooling center, heat treat equipment, and A2LA quality labs give us total control over every part we produce for faster lead times and superior quality. Call 844-CNL-BOLT for a fast, competitive quote. And remember, if it's critical, it's Cardinal.
Since 1905, Buckeye Fasteners and the Ohio Nut and Bolt Company have been supplying the world with high-quality fasteners. Our standard product lines include weld fasteners, braided weld screws, leg levelers, self-clinching hardware, clevis pins, rivet nuts, and various other fastener lines, allowing us to support virtually all types of industries. We have complete custom manufacturing capabilities in low carbon, medium carbon, and stainless steel materials, and our quality systems are registered to ISO standards. Our on-staff engineering department can assist you with product development and provide total technical support. Our knowledgeable sales team members offer superior customer service and are here to answer any questions you may have regarding our products. Having a hard time finding a part? Let our sourcing specialists do the work for you to locate those items. We offer competitive pricing with typically smaller minimums and shorter lead times. To find out more about Buckeye Fasteners, please call us at 800-437-1689 or on the web at buckeyefasteners.com. Buckeye Fasteners, more than just weld.
You're listening to Mike McNulty's Fastener News Report on Fully Threaded Radio.
In July, the FDI dropped sharply to 45.9, well below last month's result of 50.6, which was the high point of 2016 so far. Fastener Distributor Index data is collected and analyzed by the FCH Sourcing Network and the National Fastener Distributors Association. The FDI seeks to identify demand, pricing, and outlook trends within the American fastener distribution industry. To get some insight on these results, we talked to NFDA President Marc Strandquist of the Worth Group. Hi, Marc. Thanks for joining us on the Fastener News Report.
Good morning. Great to be here.
So, great to be here, but the results of the FDI aren't so great. After 2 months above the 50-point growth mark, the FDI took a dive to the place that it started off in January of 2016. What's your take on these results?
Yeah, I mean, for us, when this came out, certainly disappointing, but it wasn't a surprise. Within our group of companies here in North America, we have about 85,000 customers in a variety of markets. We don't really participate in aerospace, so if you remove that from the equation, we don't participate directly with the big three. You know, that's typically straight to manufacturing. It's not really a distribution-based, supply-based that they use. And so based on that, I mean, we saw July was very disappointing across the board. We had, out of 9 companies, we had one that was above last year's sales. So it was sudden. It was a surprise at the time. And, but we're definitely seeing that, there's been an impact. You know, one of the things that, we think have occurred was a lot of companies, you know, June was the last month of the second quarter. It was the last month of the first half of the year. And we think a lot of companies, you know, in May and June were doing everything they could to try and pump up sales and manufacture products and get them out the door. And then in July, just, there was an
took a breather. Correction.
Yeah, it took a correction because inventories grew. No one was consuming that product. And so it's really about durable goods and excluding aerospace and excluding the big three. And so it's not a big surprise, even though it's very tremendously disappointing. And for us, you know, the big question mark is going to be is, you know, in the current environment we have, both within the economy and the political landscape, is there going to be enough energy to get us back going again? You know, August is going to be 23 shipping days. So we're hoping to see a quick reaction, and then hopefully July was that correction month, and then August is going to see us get back up to the numbers that we, you know, the type of numbers that we normally like to see.
Yeah, so you said that August has 23 shipping days, and it looks like we had in July just 20. So that's a 15% difference right there.
Correct.
So hopefully that'll be part of it too. And I mean, another way to look at it is if with July being so bad, it's possible that August can be a boon in comparison.
Yeah, we're hoping. We're counting on it. But we're not seeing a lot of definitive signals, whether it's in agriculture equipment, whether it's in construction equipment and with mining and et cetera, and some of the other things. We've definitely seen that there's not been a recovery compared to what might have been occurring 2 years ago. Just the question mark is, at what point will it start to recover and go back up? And because it always has. Since World War II, the U.S. economy has always had ups and downs, no matter what market it is, which is very normal. The issue always is the length of time that you're down, and of course the length of time that you're up. And so we're just not seeing a lot of strong signals yet. Oil has gone up in some pricing. Another thing we track is the number of platforms that are on order, and that has crept up nicely in the last 60 days. But again, most of that is something that's a 2017 event. So looking at those things, we think oil and gas may have something for 2017 that's an improvement over 16. We're going to continue to track that, but we really haven't seen a lot of those indicators. As an example, for agriculture equipment, the price of corn is still at roughly $3 a bushel. When 2-3 years ago in the glory time, it was close to $7 a bushel. And, of course, farmers are more than willing to spend money on new equipment and expanding their operations at $7 a bushel. And right now we're just seeing a contraction. And I think recently the John Deere even announced even more layoffs in the last 30 days or 45 days. We've heard even more bad news out of that particular market.
No. Well, as you say, in a market economy, you have the ups and downs, and hopefully they don't last too long. Or I mean, everybody wants the ups to last long, and the downs quick and short. But I don't think I've ever heard that term, the glory days of the corn industry. So that's that's a good one.
Well, I'm in fastener sales. That's as far as I can reach.
Right. That's good. Now, as you mentioned, the results in the details of the FDI was a huge drop in sales, but I noticed in the numbers that the pricing increased a bit. So does that mean anything, or is that showing up anywhere? Pricing year to year went up a little bit over June.
Well, we're seeing some indications of very small increases, but it's still going up and down. And but key elements, nickel in terms of stainless steel had been at this all-time low, and we're thinking that's going to start to creep up a little bit here. Scrap, which is a key component to the steel that people cold form the fasteners out of, we're seeing some increases on that. So that'll help drive the pricing on that. So I guess there's been a little bit of that, but not enough to be alarming. It's just the volume's not there, and especially it could drop again based on July lack of consumption. Then people are going to order less, if at all, until they burn up that inventory, and so that's going to cause capacity to decrease. Operational capacity they'll be using less of it, and it's going to cause further potential damage to some of the raw material pricing. But it's 1 month is not going to be the bellwether. It's really going to be August should be a prime, coming off of the summer vacation time period, coming off of a 20-day month in July. That's really going to be an indicator for us on how the balance of this year is going to be.
See if it bounces back.
Yep.
Now, in every FDI, we surveyors ask for anecdotal comments, and we have some this month that are, I would say, fairly mixed, not too encouraging, but I'm going to go over those real quick. See if you have any comments on those. First was sagging durable goods and transportation equipment orders will continue to apply price pressure. Then we had there will be some price recovery in late Q3 and Q4 of 2016, but it will be slow. And somebody commented 2000 again, question mark. Year going well, but we have heard that it might be slowing down in the next few months. Then we say, after a very strong first half in sales, July results were very disappointing. I think you said that too. And then tentative marketplace uncertainty prevails, and July having 20 days of sales only was hurtful. So I think that kind of mirrors what you're saying.
Yeah, I think so. I think that the interesting part of it is with the way pricing is when times are bad, the customer purchasing departments are trying to justify their position. And so a lot of stuff that normally you're with a stable customer and you have a stable relationship, they're all making efforts to try and reduce costs. But the irony is, as an example, a part that they might have bought 200,000 pieces a year, And now, because of things are slow, they're only buying 120,000 pieces a year, yet they want a price decrease.
Costs more to make them.
Well, you just don't get the same price,
Right.
But because of the overcapacity that's out there, there is some pricing. So there is an opportunity. There's risk that your customer today is out shopping your business because they're desperate to try and reduce prices. But there's also reward that you can get out there and hustle and get out to some new customers that maybe didn't have an opportunity before.
Yeah.
And again, take advantage of some of this low pricing and maybe gain some market share. So it's very interesting times that we face as we try and protect yourself from losing a customer at the same time trying to gain market share wherever you can.
Well, that's good. Looking at an opportunity in difficult situations. So last thing I want to touch on is the results of what people expect in conditions 6 months from now. Less than half of the respondents, or 45%, expect better conditions 6 months from now, and over half, 55%, expect it to be same or the worst. What do you think?
As of today, I would say the same. And truthfully, and I don't want to really get into any political discussion, but I don't know if either of the current political candidates, if they get elected, I'm not sure if any of them will spark a resurgence in the economy just because they got elected. I don't know if that is any kind of, predictive metric to look at, which is, if a Republican goes in or if a Democrat goes in, it's going to spark the economy today based on the candidates that we have. And I think our situation, I don't think that we can count on a bounce, right? So, sometimes in history, we've seen a bounce after an election. And I don't know if that's going to be a safe thing to assume. I think there's just too many moving pieces between what's going on with the U.S. economy and the U.S. political landscape, what's going on with the global economy, right? You got Brazil that's in disarray with all the different things that are going on there. You have China that's got too much capacity, and they're having issues as well in a lot of areas. Europe is dealing with England, leaving the EU, and what does that impact? There's so many moving pieces, more than normal, that are major ones. And then, of course, there's, any kind of a terrorist attack. And what would that do to disrupt a continent and what might be going on? So I guess for me, it'd be based on the categories that you outlined, I'd predict the same and maybe worse. There's no legitimate reason for any optimism today other than, confidence in your company and the ability to go out and get market share and take advantage of it.
Adjust your plan to the conditions.
It is. You got to adapt and improvise, and you got to have a motivated sales team, and you got to have an organization that can handle growth, when it comes in big buckets in a way where, there's no activity, and all of a sudden there's a rush of activity. And so that's a lot of the kind of stuff we're working on is trying to anticipate some growth opportunities and some market share gains.
Well, I would agree with you. I don't see a big bounce coming out after the elections either, and then the next cycle will start. So personally, I think businesses are what makes jobs and what makes and individuals are what makes the economy go. So if we could get the government to pull back its manipulation somehow of what's going on, then we would have a bounce. That's my personal opinion.
Right.
Okay. Well, good. Well, thanks for joining us today on the Fastener News Report. I hope everything's going well with you guys and with the NFDA, and look forward to talking again.
Thanks, Mike. I sure appreciate it. You have a great day.
That was NFDA President Marc Strandquist of the Worth Group, and the FDI number for July was 45.9. To participate in the process, visit www.fdisurvey.com. Now for today's top story. Rotor Clip has published an ebook titled Still Made in America. The book tells the history of Rotor Clip and its founder, Robert Slass, against the backdrop of the U.S. economy changes in the second half of the 20th century following World War II. The book traces Rotor Clip's route to becoming a successful manufacturer in the retaining ring industry. It is also an affirmation of American entrepreneurialism. Rotor Clip is offering the ebook free of charge, and it is asking for an optional donation to 3 scholarship award programs sponsored by the Association of Technology, Management, and Applied Engineering. To get details on the book, visit www.rotorclip.com/ebook. Next up, today's Fastener Newsmaker headlines. In personnel news, DJ McPherson will become the new CEO of W.W. Grainger on October 1st, 2016. Vertex Distribution has promoted Gary Todd to Southeastern Regional Sales Manager. Jeff Leiter is the new president at Route Washer. Falcon Fastening Systems has added Mike Parkman as account manager. Thomas Amato is the new president and CEO of TriMas Corporation. Stanley Black & Decker announced that James Lurie has succeeded John Lundgren as president and CEO. And Noah Dupree is a new intern at GroovePin. In acquisition news, High Road Capital Partners announced that its portfolio company, All Integrated Solutions, has completed the acquisition of Great Lakes Fasteners Corporation. Steel Dynamics has completed its purchase of Vulcan Threaded Products for $114 million. In Germany, AMG Intellifast was acquired by owner-operated Aero Products Invest. And back in the USA, Penn Engineering has entered into an agreement to acquire Hayco Products, but the terms were not disclosed. In scholarship news, the Gilchrist Foundation awarded scholarships to Rachel Locke of Pyramid Fasteners, Katrina Kokobon of Century Fasteners, and Jacob Neugebauer of Cigar City Fasteners. The Women in the Fastener Industry Scholarship Committee is accepting Las Vegas travel and FTI training scholarship applications until August 31st. And the FCH Sourcing Network is offering a Fastener Training Week tuition scholarship, which has an application deadline of September 30th. In product expansion news, Nordlock has expanded its wheel nut range. Index Fixing is now offering a new chipboard screw. And Alcoa has opened a 3D printing metal powder plant to make titanium, nickel, and aluminum materials for printing aerospace parts. And in financial news, Alcoa proposed a 1-for-3 reverse stock split, which requires board approval. The Worth Group increased its first half annual sales by 8.6% to almost 6 billion euros. The Bassard Group reported a 2.1% growth in first half sales to 343 million Swiss francs. Dividend payments were declared by ITW, Park Ohio, Stanley Black & Decker, TriFast Grainger, and Alcoa. Quarterly sales increases were reported by Annixter, Chicago Rivet and Machine, Dorman, Fastenal, Grainger, Simpson, and Stanley, while quarterly revenue dropped at 3M, Bolton, ITW, Lawson Products, TriMas, and Wesco. Finally, let's turn to the back page to talk about the cost of college. I am often amused, irritated, and slightly fearful about the ongoing talk of free college tuition and expanded student loan amnesty programs. I just dropped off my kids at college, and I can tell you that attending it and operating a college is anything but free and not a reflection of functioning in a real market economy. No matter where you look, money is seeping into and out of these places, from the expansive building infrastructure to the armies of deans, administrators, and advisors to upscale food, entertainment, fitness, and counseling options. The college cost bubble is growing like crazy thanks to government manipulation, as well as a culture in America that has elevated the pampered university experience to a utopian right for every 18-year-old, regardless of skills, interests, or finances. College is now immune to natural market forces, and massive government involvement has produced a long list of unintended consequences, including unimaginable amounts of wasted money and time, depressed values of undergrad degrees, too many colleges and universities, shortages of workers in non-college professions, bloated enrollments at graduate schools, and social nonsense terms like trigger warnings, campus safe spaces, and gender-neutral pronouns. The new proposals of free tuition and student loan relief will only be accomplished by unconstitutional government-enforced plunder waged on all employed taxpayers. This has been Mike McNulty of Fastener Technology International, bringing you the Fastener News Report. Remember to send your news, pictures, comments, corrections, or complaints to me at mcnulty@fastenertech.com.
Up next, from Kerr Lakeside, the legendary Charlie Kerr. Stick around, it's fully threaded.
How do you make the top name in packaged fasteners even better? Combine it with one of the best-known names in the fastener business. Announcing that Titan Fasteners is now a proud part of Lindstrom. For more than 50 years, the Titan name has provided distributors with experience, technical expertise, and full customer support in every package that's shipped. For fastener needs in in-plant maintenance, industrial and construction, MRO and automotive, fleet, farm, building and grounds. Available by the box, keg, or pallet. Titan means packaged fasteners, and Lindstrom means choice, flexibility, and value. And together, we now offer more than 133,000 SKUs. For value-added fastener solutions in metric or inch, turn to Lindstrom and Titan Fasteners. To learn more about Titan Fasteners, visit titanfasteners.com. Lindstrom, by any measure. To speak with a sales representative, call 1-800-789-8112.
ND Industries has been solving customers' toughest problems through innovative technologies, competitive pricing, and industry-leading service since 1955. A family-owned business, ND Industries manufactures and applies fastener locking, bonding, sealing, masking, and assembling products. Their pre-application process makes fasteners ready to use at the point of assembly, resulting in reduced labor costs, time savings, and superior quality assurance. As a fully integrated company, ND handles all aspects of operations, from formulating custom chemical compounds and coating fasteners to providing inline inspection, packaging, and delivery services. ND Industries serves the global market with 13 divisions in the continental U.S. and also facilities in Taiwan, China, and Turkey. Learn more about ND Industries at our website at www.ndindustries.com. ND Industries, innovative technologies, competitive pricing, and industry-leading service. Contact ND today.
Hi everyone, it's Brian Musker. If you're listening to Fully Threaded, then you're no doubt aware of the FCH sourcing network found at fastenersclearinghouse.com. You've probably also heard about our legendary scrubber software that makes listing your inventory on FCH a snap. But have you heard about the new FCH SmartLink interface? With SmartLink, users of Business Edge, InSequel, and Distribution One have a new weapon in the war against excess inventory, because each of these platforms now links directly to the FCH Scrubber system through an automated interface. The best part is that this new tool is available at no additional charge to FCH members who use Business Edge, InSequel, or Distribution One. With SmartLink, you can keep your inventory listings up to date with the click of a button, so it's a win-win for all FCH users. The new FCH FastLink interface is really big news, and we'll be thrilled to have your company using it. Business Edge, InSequel, and Distribution One users should contact their software provider for details, or just call me, Brian Musker. You can reach me through the FCH website at www.fastenersclearinghouse.com. That's fasteners with an S, and the S is for scrubber.
Hey everybody, this is Carmen Vertullo with the Fastener Training Minute, coming to you from the Carver Fact Center in El Cajon, the Fastener Applications Consulting and Training, and the Fastener Training Institute. Today's topic is technical and practical. It's one of those issues that comes up frequently that has a very simple solution, and it's called nicked threads. So from time to time, you have a customer who complains, we've got nicks on these bolts that you sent us, and we can't get them to pass the ring gauge test. What to do? When we return, we'll tell you how to deal with nicked threads.
Thank you, Carmen. This is Joe Morris with the Fastener Training Institute. Well, summer's coming to an end, which means kids are heading back to school soon. Why not join them and expand your fastener knowledge? The Fastener Training Institute has a brand new class coming in September called Fastener Fundamentals, taught by renowned industry expert and author Jim Speck. For anyone who works with mechanical fasteners, either as a manufacturer, tier supplier, distributor, or OEM, Fastener Fundamentals is a must. You're going to get to look at heading, slotting, and threading in process. You're also going to learn about fastener materials, methods of applications, and how fasteners work. FTI will be hosting this class at Crescent Manufacturing in Burlington, Connecticut on September 20th. If you're on the West Coast and just starting out in the fastener industry, come join us September 13th for Product Training Part 1 in Santa Fe Springs, California. This is the first of a 3-part series designed to teach employees in the fastener industry about the products that they buy, sell, and warehouse. So if we're highlighting fall in the fastener industry, how can I not mention Vegas? For the 3rd year in a row, FCH Sourcing Network has teamed up with the Fastener Training Institute to offer a full scholarship to the acclaimed Fastener Training Week. This is the course that qualifies students to become a certified fastener specialist, which is one of the most notable credentials in the fastener industry. To qualify for selection, candidates must work within the fastener industry and submit a brief essay addressing the importance of training in the fastener industry and the impact of training on their career. The deadline to submit your essay is September 30th, and the winner will be announced in Las Vegas at the Fastener Show. Please visit our website at www.fastenertraining.com for more information or send me an email. Now, back to Carmen for our Fastener Training Minute.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Carmen Vertullo with the Fastener Training Minute, and today we're going to give you a tool to help you deal with nicked threads. So the scenario goes like this. You've shipped some product, the customer has it, and they are inspecting it. And one of the things that they're finding out during their inspection is that they are dealing with nicked threads, and they cannot get the ring gauge to go on the bolt. Well, we have a spec for that, believe it or not. Many solutions in the industry are specification-based, and this is one of them. So when the ring gauge will not go on the bolt, we use ASTM F788. Or F788M or ISO 6157-3. And these are both very similar specifications, and they basically say you've got a nick, the fastener will not go through the ring gauge, so we're going to give you a little bit of help by allowing you to apply some torque. Well, how much torque? There's a very simple formula. The torque you're allowed to use to overcome thread nicks is equal to 145 times the diameter cubed. Cubed means diameter to the 3rd power, or diameter times diameter times diameter. So what that comes out to, for example, with a 1/4 inch bolt, we're allowed to use 2.5 inch-pounds of torque to overcome thread nicks. Doesn't sound like much, but for a 1/4 inch bolt, it's a lot. If we get up to a larger bolt, which is where we really have these problems, 3/4 of an inch and above, we can use 5.1 foot-pounds. If we, for example, had a M18 bolt, we could use 8 Newton meters. So it's not a difficult problem to solve. It's not a difficult problem to address. It's not highly technical. And if you need the reference, and I always like my clients and my students to use authoritative references when they have to cite a solution. And in this case, it's ASTM F788, which is in your IFI 9th edition inch fastener handbook. Well, thank you for listening. This has been Carmen Vertullo with the Fastener Training Minute.
Hi, this is Marty Meyer from K&L Sales. You're listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
Brian and Eric, your online fastener amigos, back with you. Well, Brian, it's been a long time since we spoke to our next guest on the podcast today. He's a gentleman that always has a lot to say on a variety of subjects, and actually we were waiting or holding off a little bit, I think, until convention season was over, because he always has some thoughts in the political arena. And I'm speaking, of course, of Mr. Charlie Kerr, he of Kerr Lakeside, based in Euclid, Ohio. Charlie, how are you?
I'm doing great. Yourselves?
I'm doing fine, thanks.
You've been hanging tough since we talked to you last time, I trust?
Oh, yeah. Always, I'm an optimistic guy. Glass is always half full.
Good.
Or got even more water in it.
Well, after the last few days, the answer to that is quite yeah, very much so.
For folks who don't know, let's remind everyone, Kerr Lakeside is the manufacturer of high-quality socket products and cold form special and screw machine products, Euclid, Ohio. That's right outside of Cleveland. How long you guys been there? About 65 or more years these days, huh?
Well, the company was organized in 1948. We've been at our current location since 1965.
That's a fair while.
So, we've got some tenure in the city of Euclid.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, you've seen a lot of ups and downs in the industry, and we want to get right to it and get your perspective on what's happening in the industry right now. I know you are not a distributor, but you do sell through distribution, and so therefore the FDI is important to you. During the last segment, we heard Mike McNulty report on the disappointing numbers for July. Does that mesh with what you're seeing?
A little bit. Right now, I've been doing this for 40 years, and I'm seeing something that I don't ever remember dealing with before. Typically, when our sales to our distributors go up, it's across the entire diameter and length spectrum that we offer. When business drops off, the same thing applies. Right now, what we're seeing, and it creates a different challenge from a scheduling and managing the shop perspective. Our smaller diameter headers, number 8 diameter, number 10 diameter, this would be both in coarse and fine threads, by the way, and 1/4 inch diameter, and the corresponding metric sizes. I can't make these fast enough. If I could find 2 qualified header operators that would be willing to work nights, I'd hire them immediately. These screws are going off the shelf faster than I can put them back. Now, we're doing a pretty good job of taking care of back orders, so it's not like I'm negligent on satisfying customer demand. But this is a very unusual situation because when you get into the next group of diameters, primarily 5/16, 3/8, and 1/2 inch, we've got a decent workload, but it's nowhere near as strong as the demand for the smaller diameter screws that I just mentioned, the 8s, 10s, and 1/4s. Then when you get into the next group, which would primarily be 5/8 and 3/4, when we're not dying on the vine, the demand for that diameter family, the 5/8 and 3/4 is nothing like it is for the 1/4 inch and smaller. And then when you get into the even bigger stuff, 7/8 and 1 inch, it's like, it's almost like a ski slope. The sales for the small stuff is at the top of the mountain, and as you get farther down the slope into the bigger diameters, it seems like business or the demand for that product becomes weaker and weaker. I have a few theories as to why that is, but quite frankly, I couldn't tell you with absolute certainty how to explain that.
Well, what products are these smaller categories going into predominantly?
My guess is that based on who we're selling this stuff to, a lot of it's maintenance and repair, MRO in nature. And as you get into some of the, like, for example, I know for a fact, one of our distributor customers for a lot of the 3/8 diameter product, they have a machine tool builder that they supply that to. And the machine tool builders aren't taking, fasteners in the volumes they historically might have because they're not selling a lot of machines. That would be an OEM application. So, and I also know that as you get into the larger diameter screws, 5/8 and 3/4 and up, while some of that obviously is used in a maintenance and repair application, I think more of that, at least from our product mix, would be used in an OEM, original equipment manufacturer application, and less as an MRO. Now, like I said, I've never really seen this disparity in demand before. In some ways, I think it's a nice problem to have. One of the things that, and trust me, I'm grateful for every screw we sell, but the bigger the screw, the larger the raw material content is, which means our value added as a percentage of the selling price is smaller. These small screws, the material content is a smaller percentage of the selling price. Therefore, our value added is a higher percentage. What I basically just done was take about 20 seconds to say the smaller diameter screws are probably more profitable than the larger diameter screws. So I guess if I'm going to have this imbalance, I'd rather have what I have instead of the other way around.
Right. I would think so. I mean, it's hard to understand why Okay, if people are just doing repairs and things, why are they only repairing little stuff as opposed to big stuff?
Well, I think that, just based on piece counts, for example, when we set up to run a 1/4-inch diameter, we run, in theory, we start at coarse thread, shortest length, run out to the longest length, change over to fine thread, and come back to the shortest length. We might run close to 3 million screws. When, I set up to run, say, 3/4 diameter, I might run 150,000. The same thing, shortest, coarse, out the longest, and then switch to fine and go back.
Yeah.
So there's always been larger piece counts involved with the smaller diameters. And some of it could be used in OEM, but just based on who we're selling these things to, like in boxes of 50 or 100 pieces each, they're probably not going into an OEM application. Now, we do sell package quantity as well as bulk quantity in quarter kegs, and it's more packaged than bulk. I have a sneaky feeling we start shipping quarter kegs, like you put 9 quarter kegs on a pallet of the same item. That's probably an OEM application where one guy's taking all the screws and they got a bunch of stuff they're going to build with it. And, we're still selling bulk, but not the package is accounting for most of the demand for the smaller screws right now.
Oh, okay. Well, that's sort of unusual, but whatever.
Let me ask you a question. I don't know. You probably are a pretty good authority on this. A lot of the steel, obviously, that's out there is being, I guess, reconstituted. What is it called? Second generation, if it's from scrap, but first generation from ore. In general, in your business, does it even make a difference to you, or is there a ratio that you've seen? And if so, is that ratio fluctuated?
Well, if you'd asked me this question 15 years ago, I would have said it makes all the difference in the world. Republic Steel, or Republic Engineered Technologies, they've had different names over the years. They were operating a blast furnace, which, is the iron ore and all the other, minerals go into the furnace. They basically make virgin steel. For the type of cold heading we do, BOF, that's what, steel made the blast furnace is called, is more user-friendly. It forms better. It typically has fewer surface discontinuities. Now, over the years, Charter pretty much supplies all of our steel. It's all electric furnace. Electric furnace is basically scrap that's melted down. They throw some elements in there, alloying elements to get it to the right chemistry. Now, there have been some significant improvements made over the years to make the electric furnace steel have better surface quality and better formability. We've had very few quality problems, but at the end of the day, first of all, ordinarily, electric furnace steel is less costly to make than blast furnace steel. It's not always the case, but as a rule of thumb. So when scrap becomes, that's their raw material, becomes more costly, they have, once again, this lack of predictability. Now, iron ore and some of the other alloying elements, they vary in price as well. But I don't think that the market variations for iron ore have been as severe the last 5 or 6 years as they have been for scrap. So, long story short, BOF steel for certain applications is better, but electric furnace steel, the melting practices and the rolling practices in the last, say, 10 years have brought it to the point where I don't really pay much attention to it anymore. Like I said, 15 years ago, if I had the opportunity to buy BOF back, Republic in Lorain, Ohio was our sole source of material until they did what I call blew out the blast furnace. And I was really concerned because we had tried some electric furnace melt from, mills like Charter and a few of their competitors. And while we were able to make parts, our tool breakage was higher. We sorted more parts for head cracks. And we, had a few other difficulties, but it's, a lot of that stuff the mills have been able to solve. So I guess to answer your question, because there are still some mills in the world that make BOF steel, they're outnumbered by the ones that are melting scrap to make electric furnace.
So whereabouts are these furnaces making this BOF steel? I mean, are there any in the United States at all?
For cold heading quality, I don't know. The only mill, one thing I have to tell you guys, we're pretty particular about what we buy. In a perfect world, it's going to be steel that's made in the United States. And like I said, Charter's our, main supplier. Of course, they're American-based steel mill. Once in a while, you got to get something that's not made in the U.S., but it still has to be DFARS compliant. And for any of your listeners that aren't sure what that means, it basically says, the Department of Defense has this list of countries that if you're going to make parts that have some sort of Department of Defense application, you can't use steel unless it's made like in Great Britain, Germany, Canada. There's a couple others that are on the list. I can't think of who they are. But British Steel is making BOF steel, and they are exporting it to the United States. I've had some of it come through the building. We had very good luck with it, and they're on the approved supplier list. But once again, Charter, even if I don't buy the steel directly from Charter, I might go through a processing facility. Typically, they buy the steel from Charter. Charter's got a big chunk of the cold heading quality market in the United States. I mean, Nucor's there, and there's a couple other companies. But Charter's the dominant player. And to some extent, I'll tell you the truth. I mean, it's, a little bit, I shouldn't say it's worrisome. Charter does a great job. They very rarely miss a delivery date. Very few quality problems. But it's like, I'm not making this up. About a year ago, I'm driving into work, and on the news, there's a fire at the steel mill. And it's a big fire. Almost every fire truck on the east side of Cleveland responded to it. I thought, oh my God, my supplier's burning to the ground. Well, it was a big fire, but it didn't disrupt the steelmaking operations. Well, if something happened to Charter of a catastrophic magnitude that severely crimped their ability to satisfy their production requirements, that would create a huge steel shortage in the cold heading quality market. It might not be a long shortage, but it would be disruptive. My problem is we have tried some other people's steel. It doesn't work as well for us as Charter's does. So we keep buying from Charter.
Well, good suppliers is one of the keys to success, and obviously that's something that's of chief concern to Kerr Lakeside. Well, thanks for the info on that. As always, when we ask you a question, you give us a very thorough and well footnoted answer, and I think we all got an education on that. Let me shift gears, Charlie. You mentioned something else earlier in one of your comments that I wanted to follow up on. It has to do with something I know that's near and dear to your heart, and that's finding qualified people. This is a theme we keep hearing over and over in our anecdotal conversations. Are you seeing any change in the amount of qualified people in the workforce out there in your particular area? Is it pretty much more of the same? Or any developments from your perspective?
Well, one thing, I'm going back before I even got into the industry. My dad always said, good help is hard to find. This has been a perpetual problem, challenge. One thing I will tell you about manufacturing in particular, there's been so much negative publicity. That's probably not the right way to describe it, but manufacturing is dying. Or there's this narrative out there that going to work in a factory or going to work in a steel mill, going to work someplace where you might get your hands dirty and it might not be air conditioned on an August day when it's 90 degrees. 45, 50 years ago, it was given. You went to high school and you went to work for, someone, they were a big company, like in the Euclid area. You had Chase Brass and Copper, or Dresser-Graph, Moldograph, Fisher Body, Thompson Products, which, became TRW. They made like engine valves and stuff like that. It was just accepted. This is, unless you want to be a surgeon or a lawyer and go to college for that, you went to work in a factory. The mindset today of people entering the workforce is different. They view these jobs, and to some extent, I guess if I was in my early 20s and all I heard about was factory closings and layoffs, people being downsized and outsourcing jobs, I probably would be inclined to avoid entering, those industries as well. I think progress is being made slowly but surely. It didn't take us 5 weeks to get into this problem. It's not going to take 5 weeks to get out of it. I had said earlier in the conversation, if I could find 2 people that knew how to run these headers and they were willing to work nights, I'd hire them tomorrow. They're not out there. And quite frankly, there's a few people that like working night shift. They're the exception and not the rule. The caliber of person I would, hire and trust to work basically unsupervised on second shift can get a job anywhere they want, any shift they want. They don't have to work second shift. So that makes it a little bit more challenging. Even with the shift premium, we used to pay, at one time it was just 5%. We jacked it up to 10%. I've even toyed with the idea of taking it even higher than that. At the end of the day, I could make it 100%. If you can't find someone that's got the wherewithal to do it, it's not going to matter.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll tell you that more and more of the community colleges in the Cleveland area, Lakeland Community College out there in the Mentor, Cuyahoga Community College, called Tri-C by the locals, Lorain County Community College, I've been through their facilities. And I'm talking major investment made in equipment and expertise, which is manufacturing related. Now, it doesn't necessarily translate directly to our company, but these schools would not be putting these programs in place either for adult continuing education or, taking kids right out of high school that are interested in getting an associate's degree. They wouldn't have made this investment if there wasn't a market for it. So I think that, going forward, it will be less challenging, but at the end of the day, you're still competing with, people want to sit in an air-conditioned office in front of a computer screen all day. To them, that's the ideal job. Well, that's, nice if you can find that kind of job, but I can pay people way more than you're going to get working in a phone call center or whatever, running a machine. But you're going to get dirty. It's going to be hot in the factory. But at the end of the day, when it comes to competing for wages, people in manufacturing, that's not the problem. The problem is the mindset of the candidate. And that's, it's still going to take some time to totally change that. Quite frankly, I'm 60 years old. I don't think I'm going to live to see the day like it was back in the 1940s and 50s and 60s when, people came out of high school and just gravitated into these, manufacturing facilities. But I think that the trend is moving slowly in the right direction.
Yeah, I wouldn't be holding my breath either, actually.
No, but spoken like the optimist that you are.
Well, I have to be optimistic because I'm going to tell you something. One thing I learned, and I know it sounds like I'm kind of dissing my father, one thing that's very different about me and my dad, if we had a record year, record sales, record profits, he'd still bitch. It should have been better. I'm the exact opposite. If we have a terrible year and lose money, I'm thankful that it wasn't worse. And it's just, I think that when you work at a company, and my dad did pretty well, but he had this negative edge to him, where I'm the exact opposite. I think if you exude positive mental attitude, it rubs off on people. And whether it's your outside salespeople, it's your inside salespeople, it's your production people, your quality people, if the boss has got a positive mindset, they come to work with a more positive disposition. If the boss is in a grumpy, Ebenezer Scrooge kind of guy, old grouch, that almost poisons the well. And I'm not naively, some people are optimistic just because they're ignorant of the facts around them. Even when I'm concerned about stuff, unless it's really serious, I try to conceal my concerns from our employees because people that are worried are more inclined to make mistakes. And then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Yeah, I agree entirely.
Well, you're no Pollyanna. You're realistic, but you are an optimist, as you said. Here's another subject for you to project some optimism on, and that is recently here in Cleveland, we had the RNC. Then the week after was the DNC in Philadelphia. And I know you've got thoughts on the whole thing. If you could summarize your thoughts just on the whole political situation as it exists right now, what would you characterize that as, Charlie?
Well, let me, before I answer your question, give everybody a little bit of background. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, I was deeply involved in Republican politics. I was a member of the county executive committee. I was, deeply involved as volunteer on state rep campaigns, state senate campaigns, and congressional campaigns, and a few judicial campaigns. So I've had, an opportunity to see a winning campaign, a losing campaign. So, I've got a flavor for this. I'm not nearly as involved as I used to be. If you would have told me back in 1992 what this presidential race was going to be like today, I would have thought you watched a cartoon movie. And I'm not
You're not alone.
I'm not saying that to be disrespectful about anybody that's currently in the race or anybody who had been in the race beforehand. But the conduct at the debates that, let's talk about the Republican side of things for a minute. I was watching stuff that to me was inconceivable. It's like, don't these people know that they're, saying things that eventually could be used, it's like a, single elimination tournament. As you get closer, every round, fewer people are left. You're handing the opposition an argument. Now, on the Democratic side, I can't believe that Bernie Sanders was the only Democrat besides Hillary Clinton that had sincere presidential ambitions. And, he didn't have a chance. But, let's, go back in history a little bit. I understand why Robert Kennedy was popular. He was a good-looking guy. He was well-spoken. He was charismatic. His brother, who unfortunately had been assassinated, was the same way. There was a certain air of professionalism, of competency that they brought to the table. And over the years, there were a couple other people on that side of the aisle that ran. Bill Clinton, he was a charismatic guy. Yeah. His wife is nothing like these people. There's nobody in that party that could have challenged her. That's a head scratcher. Forget the fact that I think she's corrupt. I shouldn't say I think, I'm pretty confident that I know. Okay, stop and think about this for a minute. Everybody's seen her on TV. Who would pay her $21 million to listen to that?
Well, people who are expecting political favors and patronage, obviously.
Exactly. Now, let's shift gears for a second. You and I talked about this on a previous podcast. And you'd asked me if I had some inkling as to who. This was before a lot of people even declared their candidacy. And we talked about some of the obvious ones, like Governor Chris Christie of New Jersey. Scott Walker, the governor of Wisconsin, came up. There were a few people in the Senate. I don't remember Donald Trump's name coming up. Now, he's not somebody, if he had come up, I would have given a lot of time to. And I think the reason why he's gotten to where he is, keep in mind, I'm wearing my hat as the former political operative here. How many times have you heard someone say we need a third party in this country?
Yeah, well, it's a recurrent. To a greater or lesser extent over the last at least half dozen news cycles. And this goes back all the way to the turn of the previous century.
Right. Donald Trump is the third party. Even though he's running as the candidate of an existing party, he is the third party candidate. I'm going to digress for a second because this is, I think, meaningful for people to know. In February of 2006, I was at a meeting of the Precision Machine Products Association in Tucson, Arizona. And one of the speakers they had was a gentleman named Warren Rustad. Warren Rustad had worked in the Reagan White House as a staff member of some type. He's a tennis player. And at that time, the vice president, who was George H.W. Bush, was also a tennis player. And I guess Rustad was a pretty good tennis player, as was the vice president. So they played tennis a lot. And he got to know Vice President George H.W. Bush, who later became president, and he became part of George Bush, President H.W. Bush, his inner circle. So here's what Warren Rustad had to say in February of 2006. They were talking about the 2008 election. And what Warren said was he predicted Hillary Clinton would be the next president. Now, at this time, no one knew who Barack Obama was, unless you were a resident of the state of Illinois or specifically Chicago. I think Carol Moseley Braun was still in the U.S. Senate when this presentation was made. And Warren Rustad's exact words are, this was 10 years ago, that I still remember this. He said, the Clintons and the Bushes do not despise each other the way you think they might. So Mary Madeline, George Bush's campaign manager, was married to James Carville, who happened to be Bill Clinton's campaign manager. So they've made a deal. Jeb Bush is not going to run for president in 2008. The Bushes are going to stay on the sidelines and let 2008 be Hillary Clinton's opportunity to become the president of the United States. And he predicted that she would win, and once again, Barack Obama wasn't even on the radar. Because the Bushes are, you can say what you want about them, good or bad, they control, or I shouldn't say control, but they got their hands on the levers of a lot of very effective fundraising apparatus in the Republican Party. Well, if they're not out there raising a lot of money for whoever the Republican nominee is going to be, who was John McCain that year, it's going to make it harder for them to win. Well, Obama shows up and denies Hillary the nomination. He serves 2 terms as president. Well, Jeb Bush kept his half of the deal. He didn't run for president in 2008. Well, now all of a sudden Hillary shows up. But wait a minute, Hillary, you were supposed to run in 2008. You did. You didn't win, and you agreed not to get in my way. There was a deal made. And the Clintons, I wouldn't go so far as to say they control Democrat politics. They got a heck of a lot to say what goes on. She wouldn't have been a senator or secretary of state and the nominee of their party. They didn't carry a lot of sway.
Right.
They made a deal with their counterparts on the other party. And I think a lot of people, they might not know the details that I just spit out. Warren Rustad wouldn't have said that. I mean, his resume, I gave you a thumbnail sketch. He's got way too much to lose by telling stories that aren't true. I think a lot of people on the Republican side of the aisle got hip to the fact that Bush is a wheeler dealer, and that's why he finished last in the primaries. Now, it doesn't necessarily explain why Donald Trump was able to pull it off, but, Jeb had more money than all the other candidates combined when the primary started. He finished last.
Well, that was shocking to a lot of people. And, I think what you're saying is becoming known to a lot more people. I mean, I think that there's a lot more punditry out there with all the new media than previous election cycles. And so it's a little bit more of common knowledge, but still shocking to some people. And you certainly had a grasp of that way before that set in. But let's cut to the chase if we can. And I know this is going to be a biggie, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but in 90 seconds or less, if you had to look in the crystal ball, what do you see for the next couple of months?
A pie fight. Remember that Three Stooges episode where they go to the fancy party and they start throwing pies at each other? That's what it's going to be like. Let me tell you something. I'm not going to answer your question, I think, the way you expect me to. There are people in the Republican Party and people in the Democratic Party that are assuming whoever wins this election is only going to serve one term. I can see Donald Trump being elected president and being voted out of office 4 years later. I can see Hillary Clinton being elected president and her being voted out of office 4 years later. That explains why a lot of people like, Ted Cruz wouldn't endorse Donald Trump. Jeb Bush took this pledge, I'll support the nominee. He's not. They're lining up their ducks for 4 years from now. Now, if they have a vested interest in Hillary Clinton being elected because it's easier to run against a Democrat incumbent than it is a member of your own party, that's why I think Hillary Clinton has the edge right now. There are people in the Republican Party that don't appreciate the fact Donald Trump took it over, basically pulled the rug out from underneath them, handed their heads to him figuratively, and they're going to say, okay, we can beat Clinton 4 years from now, but we have to make sure you don't do it today for that to happen. So I'm kind of predicting a Clinton victory. I'm crossing my fingers and hoping I'm wrong. But there's too many people on the Republican side of the aisle, the never Trumpers, I think is what they're referred to as. They're looking 4 years down the road, and I'm not happy about it, but I think it's the reality of the politics of the day.
I think that's a great analysis. I don't think I've heard anything better out there, and God knows we're all sick of it. But
right.
I think you're dead on. The question is, either way it goes, can we survive 4 years? That's not certain at all in my crystal ball. But the cream puff war, that's what we're looking at, right? The cream puff war.
See, Eric, there's something that kind of makes me very nervous. Hillary Clinton is a known commodity. I know she's going to do a lot of things I'm not okay with if she's elected president. Donald Trump is not a known commodity. But he said something once that really spooked me. And this is what it was. He said, we can renegotiate the country's debt. We'll offer everybody 75 cents on the dollar. Well, it might not have been 75 cents, but basically said, we owe you $1. We're going to offer you less than $1. Now, I've had some customers of ours come forward and say, look, we're in trouble financially. To avoid filing Chapter 11, this is what we can do. And sometimes it depends on what's involved. In private enterprise, that is not a real common negotiating tactic, but it's not unheard of. You don't do that when you're the federal government. And even if he's thinking that, the fact that he would say it publicly is very alarming to me.
Well, I have to say it this way. I don't think that's a serious plank in the platform. I don't think a lot of people do. It sounds good, but not that our operating debt isn't a huge issue and unfunded liabilities and so forth, but I just think we have to put out some fires and fend off some other dangers right now, and that's really what it is. I think a lot of people just have to write off a lot. I mean, we're all compromising, That's just what we're faced with.
Well, at some point, the bills are going to come due, and I had the opportunity to listen to an economist talk, the debt is somewhere between $18 trillion and $20 trillion, depending on what's included and what's not included. But one thing that is not included, I'm 60 years old. Someday I'm going to retire and I'm entitled to collect some Social Security. That obligation that the Social Security Administration has to me is not reflected in the debt because It's not a current liability. And when you add that in there, the debt goes from like $20 trillion to like 60.
Well, Charlie, I would have to say that once you start looking at unfunded liabilities and all of those huge burdens that we placed on ourselves, and the ones that some are promising in addition to those, we're talking about the quadrillions, because how long is a piece of string at that point, as you're fond of saying, Brian?
Yeah.
So, that, and now we're way out in the tall grass, but, thanks for the analysis. And I'm going to ask you at this point, because you're a huge baseball fan, also what your take is on the Indians this year, because I think probably the audience.
I've seen the Indians in Detroit and Chicago more than I've seen them in Cleveland. I'm actually going to Chicago to see 2 games the Indians play against the White Sox on the 12th and 13th of September. I like baseball. I enjoy the fact that we have a decent team. I'm part of a season ticket holder group, and the invoice for postseason tickets is going to be coming in about a week. I'm going to tell the other 4 guys in the group, divide the playoff tickets by 4 instead of 5. There's a couple reasons for that. I happen to have a commitment to be out of town in the event that the Indians would participate in the World Series. So I see no point in spending, the invoice for the playoff tickets will be almost what it is for the whole season. We're in the 4th row by the dugout. But I'm not betting the farm on this. The Indians got good pitching. They've got a couple holes in their batting lineup that occasionally, they get a couple guys that go on prolonged batting slumps. If they get hot and they go into the playoffs, anything's possible. But the Cavaliers, even though I'm not a big NBA fan, I knew at the beginning of the season it was very realistic that they could win the championship. I don't have that same vibe about the Indians. I think they can win the division, but we're going to need Detroit to help us Detroit's had a couple of rough spots. But the Twins, I think, the worst team in baseball. We played them, I think, 10 times, and they've won 9 of the games. You don't win a World Series when you can't take care of teams like that.
All right. Well, that's fair enough. That's more clear-eyed optimism, I guess we'll call it.
The Lions are right no matter what.
Well, it's America's pastime, like it or not still, folks. Hey, I have to say also, Charlie, thanks for the great Kerr Lakeside baseball hat. You'll be happy to know that I inaugurated mine. It's got salmon guts all over it right now. I wore it up to Alaska a couple days back.
I'll get you a clean one if you need it.
I do. Hey, everybody, we've been speaking with the one and only Charlie Kerr of Kerr Lakeside, based out of Euclid, Ohio. And it's always fantastic to have you on the podcast. We always get more than we bargained for, Charlie.
That's true.
Well, I appreciate you. You call me about once every 6 to 9 months, and although I do see you in the interim, And speaking of the Indians, I'm assuming I'm going to see your smiling face next week.
Well, we're going to try and get out there. I think we have an issue with our season Browns tickets, so we got a pregame. I don't know what we're doing about that. Lately I'm not as in charge of my social schedule as I used to be.
Uh-oh. I think that's a good place to cut this off.
You're
well,
the
if I don't
boss.
see you next week, I'll see you at an industry event somewhere along the way.
You can bank on that. And folks, if you need to get more information on what Charlie's up to, you can certainly do that at their website. That's www.kerrlakeside.com. Thanks once again for joining us on the podcast.
My pleasure.
Right.
Coming to you across the vast audio radiance of the internet, it's the voice of the FCH Sourcing Network. Fully Threaded Radio.
When top quality and outstanding service are at the top of your list in fastener suppliers, turn to Stellfast. Since 1976, Stellfast has grown to become an industry-leading importer and manufacturer of the highest quality industrial fasteners, specialty items, and automotive parts. Our array of facilities across North America and in Asia, along with full quality control labs and ISO 9001-2008 certifications, ensure the highest quality parts, and at Stellfast, they're delivered with undisputed service excellence. We're family-run and dedicated to your success. Our customers have come to depend on the expertise of our staff and the quality of our products. We also offer a wide range of secondary services to meet some of the toughest requirements you might have. Contact Stellfast today through our website at www.stellfast.com and put us to work for you. Stellfast. Service you deserve, people you trust. It's that time again. Time for the largest event of the year in the fastener industry. It's the National Industrial Fastener and Mill Supply Expo. The show takes place October 25th through 27th at the Sands Expo Center in Las Vegas. If you attend the show every year, you'll be surprised at the many enhancements Emerald Expositions has added, including more meetings, free sessions, and award recognition ceremonies right on the show floor. They've even expanded the legendary welcome reception, which is being held this year poolside at Treasure Island. And if you haven't yet attended the Fastener Show, this is the year to make the trip. This is the big time in the fastener industry, and this year's event will be the largest ever, so you can't afford not to. The show features over 600 suppliers from across the country and worldwide. The National Industrial Fastener and Mill Supply Expo takes place October 25th through 27th in Las Vegas. For full details and to register, visit www.fastenershows.com. See you there.
First, there was fire, and man said,
"Fire, good."
Then there was the wheel, and man said,
"Wheel, good."
With the invention of the wheel came the need for fasteners, and man loudly exclaimed,
"Buckeye, good."
Buckeye Fasteners, providing quality products since the dawn of man. The preceding message was brought to you by Buckeye Fasteners and the Ohio Nut and Bolt Company, proud Fastener Show sponsors of Old Rusty Bolt Beer, official beer of the Traveling Salesman.
Tell 'em Grog sent you. Ugh.
My customer sent me a print for a bolt specifically for the machine in his shop, but we can't make it.
Solution Man can. Provide me with the print, and my superhuman CNC machining team will custom make it for you faster than a manufacturer's rep drinking at an open bar. Visit the Solution Industries website for details at solutionInd.com.
Wow, that is fast.
So are you at the Distributive Social, huh?
Hey guys, this is the one and only Rebecca Day of Exact Industries, and you're listening to my online fasting soul brothers, Brian and Eric, on Fully Threaded Radio.
Brian and Eric back with you, doing a job most fastener people won't do. Fully Threaded.
Oh, okay.
So, Brian, did they have the Three Stooges in New Zealand when you were growing up? I mean, was that part of your youth experience?
Yes, it was. Three Stooges used to show in general. I mean, remember, there was only one TV station in the whole country. And they used to broadcast old movies like the Marx Brothers and Three Stooges on Sunday afternoon.
Oh, your dad must have loved that.
I hated it because we had to stay inside and watch them.
So do you remember that particular episode, the one that Charlie was referring to with the great pie fight? It's kind of famous around here, but I wasn't sure if you were able to connect with that.
Oh, I'm sure I saw it, okay. Can I recall every scene in it? No. I've seen a lot of movies since then.
Well, that's definitely one that you don't forget if you ever have seen it. And, you know, he was right. I mean, if you did miss it, all you have to do is pretty much turn on any kind of a political talk show these days, and you'll get the idea of what it was.
Yeah.
You know, what's really shocking, though, is the youth of today. I don't know. They are inundated with media, but they don't know about the Three Stooges, which is weird. I thought it was just kind of one of these universal things. I was talking to a kid, good friend of mine, 12 years old, going on 13, and he's never seen the Three Stooges, so I don't know. I guess I'm getting old too.
Right, and of course the worst problem is it's black and white, okay, which is like admitting you don't know anything about technology or you don't know how to use your phone.
Yeah, it doesn't really seem to appeal to the modern taste. Well, in any event, I'd like to thank Charlie Kerr for joining us on the show and bringing it up and at least giving us some kind of a minor theme to work with for the episode.
Right. And his thoughts on lots of other things too.
Absolutely. And that's why we keep having him back on. Charlie Kerr, Kerr Lakeside. Also, I'd like to thank a couple of our other guests today, including John Metcalf and Chris Lacassi, they of Peak Innovation Engineering. Also, Marc Strandquist, president of the NFDA, and also from the Worth Group. He joined Mike McNulty on the Fastener News Report today. Carmen Vertullo brought us the Fastener Training Minute. Thanks for a great job once again, guys. And thanks to all the sponsors who brought you Fully Threaded Radio today. The title sponsors are Stelfast. For service you deserve and people you trust, it's Stelfast. And Lindstrom, and the Lindstrom family of companies. Lindstrom, by any measure. Also sponsoring Fully Threaded Radio, Buckeye Fasteners, Cardinal Fastener, Fastenal, Fastener Technology International, InSequel Software, National Industrial Fastener and Mill Supply Expo, ND Industries, The Worth Group, Volt Industrial Plastics, and Solution Industries, home of Solution Man. Please let us know what you think of the podcast, folks, if you have suggestions, questions, veiled insults, whatever it might be.
Veiled threats.
No, don't send those. The email address, ftr@fullythreaded.com, or if you're really hip, the Twitter handle's fullythreaded. You know, speaking of pie fights, Bri, we're going to close out by just making reference to something that is swirling around the internet right now. I guess by the time some of our listeners hear this, it's already going to be kind of a historical footnote, or maybe not, if the opponents are successful. But it doesn't take too much to troll the headlines today and see all over the place that the current administration in Washington is on the verge of handing over control of the internet as of October 1st. And by control, they mean the ability to issue the names and addresses, otherwise known as the DNS servers, or the domain name servers, which is a pretty big deal, don't you think?
I think it's a huge deal. And it sort of amazes me. It's something we don't understand in this. But from my understanding, this was first proposed under the Clinton administration in 1997, and it's stayed around since then. And somewhere there's got to be money in it, okay? I mean, I can see no benefit to the US of giving away control to the system that was set up by the US using US companies and actually Department of Defense contracts. I mean, it wasn't as if any of what we know as the internet was designed in China or Russia or Germany or France. It all came from National Science Foundation funding and DoD contracts. And the work of AT&T, and it was then GTE that built the first set of connections that made the web work.
Well, it's a good point about benefits, because I've heard a couple of really weak attempts at explaining what the alleged benefit of this is supposed to be. I can't see one, and all I see is potential liability. You know, it's interesting that you mentioned that it was first proposed during the Clinton administration, and now they're trying to drive it home now. Because can you think of another really crappy idea that made the same debut during Clinton and they brought it to us courtesy of Obama?
Yeah.
Socialized medicine.
Right.
Great track record,
guys. There's no particular benefit to the US. Now, maybe it's one of these altruistic things of we're going to give this to the world or something. I mean, okay. But it came about in a time of the Cold War. I mean, that's why the whole internet was developed, so that the messages could be passed around if there was a condition where all forms of communication, as we know them, were blocked out via radiation, okay? And so the whole idea of the web, so that messages could get from one place to another when all other systems had broken down. I mean, that view still sort of stands.
Well, the network that constitutes the internet is going to remain at some level a fractal landscape. In other words, a beast whose head really can't be chopped off. However, the DNS management is a pretty critical component of all of that, and there's only risk and liability involved in giving it away. Fortunately, it's not settled, and I think we've gone far beyond trial balloon phase of this whole thing, and it looks like they're really on track to doing it. But there are some fairly strong, organized voices that are opposing this, and we'll just have to see what happens. Again, by the next episode, we'll, I guess, kind of have an idea about who won and who lost this pie fight.
Yeah, I mean, look, if the Russians, particularly, or the Chinese or the Turkish, or whatever it is, they want to wrestle control away, they can make their own internet. Won't work, but they can have it, okay? I mean, I don't see why we need to give that away. I mean, the chance is that someone could create some protocol that destroys the TCP protocol, stops the web working as we know it. There's a lot of reasons why, even not militarily, why it was funded by the government and then heavily funded by AT&T and GTE. Why do they throw away all their investment? Someone will tell us what the great reason for this is, okay? I'm sure.
Yeah, just like they had an explanation for the Great Cream Puff War.
Okay, right. Okay, I'll be waiting for that.
Yeah, hold your breath, or don't. Yeah. But episode 109 of the podcast will allow us to take another look at this same issue if we dare. And I hope that you're all with us to do so, folks. Thanks again for listening. We're going to put this episode of Fully Threaded Radio in the pie tin. For Brian Musker, this is Eric Dudas. Get out there, sell some screws, eat some pie. And we'll talk to you next time.
See you next time. Let us know what you think, okay?
Fully Threaded Radio is a production of Fastener's Clearinghouse. Music provided by Audionautics.